Hey everybody, back again. Looks like it's working. I can hear music. Just go up a tad. Maybe it's a little too low. I'm just doing a quick background check on the audio, listen to myself, just to make sure it's not totally screwed up. Fix the chat so I can see what's happening. Alright, come on. What are you doing? There's the thing, okay. Alright, sounds okay. I'm gonna mute it so I can just watch the chat. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to do one for a while because of the damn weather, as usual. This is winter now, officially. And so, good news is, getting into some of the good galaxies coming up. Now Virgo and Leo are starting to come up. Unfortunately, tonight started out pretty cool, and literally while I was setting up, there's just a little bit of rim clouds on the horizon all around, but clear otherwise, pretty good. Well, I was setting for 30 minutes or less because I had some battery issues. I looked up and I go, holy shit, it's all of a sudden all cloudy, but this kind of foggy cloudy that you get in the early morning sometimes. So the moon is still good. So I'm able to see the moon. As you can see, that's a live shot of the moon. So it's not a total loss. I can go play with the moon. And it's got a terminator, which means it's more interesting than a full moon, which is just too bright and no edge details and stuff. So let's go ahead and get going here. I'm gonna have to switch to my battery pretty soon because the cold weather is also making the laptop not last as long. So let's zoom in a bit more. Let's fix the focus. That's pretty good. Just snap a couple quick shots for later. I can look at them. Of course, when you snap a shot, the zoom goes away. There's a nice little rim of craters there. That's kind of cool. Let's get a little closer here. Well, that's quite nice. Let me fix that focus a little better. That's pretty good right there. It's not going to be tack sharp because it's looking through some clouds. Actually, it's kind of funny. You normally get that kind of ice bow because they call it the 20 is it 21 or 22 degree halo around the moon. It's called a moon bow. Well, it's got a bit of almost a prismatic rainbow effect, a very tight ring around it, and then a smaller fuzzy ring further out, almost like an umbra penumbra effect, and then just solid hazy, cloudy, foggy stuff all around the sky. In fact, the trees in the distance are foggy. So that's the way it goes. So pretty much all the stars are gone now except for a couple bright ones and the moon. So like I said, it's not a total loss. We got the moon to enjoy a little bit. I wasn't prepared to look at the moon that much tonight, so I didn't get a nice moon map ready to start naming all the craters that I wanted to find at some point, but so okay, that's pretty decent there. Again, it's going to be a little hazy because of the conditions. Give me a second here. I just got a warning for the battery, of course, because the cold weather makes the computer battery unhappy. Didn't didn't take long for it to... I had it on the whole time while I was setting up. I should have had the damn laptop off, because there's no point in having the laptop on if the scope's not ready. But that's what inverter batteries are for. So give me a second here and plug this in before it dies. Love these Cristonia batteries from Amazon. Super cool, super easy to use, lots of power. Built-in inverter, so you can plug in any AC device within reason. Laptop power supplies aren't that crazy, so it'll last quite a while on this little setup. All right. Okay. Ooh, I noticed that looks dark all of a sudden. I'm gonna have to crank that up. That's not bad. So there's a little shot in the background of Stellarium just for fun. Although it's not useful right now, really. It's just showing you the moon. It was showing the moon, now it's showing the moon. There you go. So if you go in here, I'll turn this on real quick. Because it crashed, of course. Stellarium always crashes. And then I'll turn on the, not the characters, but the constellation boundaries. And the names. So you can see sorry, that wasn't the moon, that was up here. I'm way off here. The software wasn't set up when I turned this thing on, so let's go. That's in the wrong part of the sky. That's Orion over there. There's the moon. It's in Virgo, actually. And I was hoping to look at some Virgo stuff tonight, even though it's low in the horizon, because this is the wonderful constellation, has tons of great galaxy clusters. There's the Virgo supercluster. There's a Leo cluster nearby. It's all kinds of cool stuff. And it's all foggy, cloudy right now. So that is not going to happen tonight. So let's go ahead and cruise around the moon a little bit since we still have it to look at. So a nice little rim of craters right there. Turn the brightness up on that a tad. So we're just looking at the moon right now. Let's make the image bigger on the stream. Much better that way. Okay. So this is the beauty of the phases. We have a nice terminator, dark line there, so you get the occasionally get some earth shine coming off of there, but not when with this conditions right now so much. But you can see some stuff peaking where it's supposed to be dark because they're a little higher up than the stuff around it. So, for example, this guy over here. Oops. See on the other side of that big crater there? On the right in the dark region, there's that little guy being illuminated. I can zoom in a bit here. Snap a quick shot for later. Yeah, it's about as close as I can get right now. I have a Barlow lens coming My zoom eyepiece projection deal was working okay for a while, but it's the images are suffering. It's a little too much glass. So I'm going with the Barlow approach, which will give me closer images than this, but not less image degradation. Let me fix this. There's too much. The ISO is wrong here. There we go. Let's zoom in on that. We need to go a little. Let's turn the ISO down a tad. That's better. And turn the frame rate down a little bit there. Now we can zoom in again. Still a little dark. Let's turn the ISO back up, I guess. It's funny because the calibration on the screen here is so much brighter than it is on the OBS display for some reason. So I'm going to go there. And then I can crank that up a tad so it's a little less shutter speed. Now it's getting a little more noisy because this got some coverage. It's getting more fuzzy up there, but still okay. All things considered, it doesn't look terrible. It's just not something you would take a picture and be proud of at this point. And that's as close as I can get right now, unfortunately, with this without a Barlow. Doing prime focus, essentially. It's just a camera right on the eyepiece of the telescope. It's called prime focus. So you're basically using the camera as an eyepiece. There's no eyepiece in between. It's just some ring adapters and so forth to make it fit inside the eyepiece at a distance where you can still focus it. And you know, eyepieces are all have different back focus issues, and so do cameras, and so that's why you have to have a series of adapters and stuff. If you guys get into this stuff, you'll see it's kind of a nightmare sometimes to figure this stuff out. And as you keep switching stuff around, you got to keep adjusting it until you get like kind of a magic combination. Let me turn this. I think the screen brightness got turned down here for some reason. Let's see that. Now I've got battery on there. I can turn it up a bit. That'll help a little bit. Can I move that? I should be able to make that screen bigger. That's a little better. OBS is kind of funky. There we go, that's a bigger image there. Okay, so it's still a little bit dark, but again, like I said, it's, if you saw what it looks like naked eye, it's quite obscured by essentially fog. At first there were some clouds rolling in, but now it's just wispy fog everywhere because the trees are bathed in it around me and stuff. But you know, all that considered, it's still something to look at. It's better than nothing. It's not so bad that you just get an obscured fuzzy patch in the sky. That should be the moon. You can still tell it's the moon naked eye and definitely see it in the scope, that you can still see some details. So let's go down here. Look at that nice rim of craters there. And I was just itching to get out and use the scope, even if the weather was kind of iffy, and now it's really iffy, but I'm still having fun because I haven't had a chance to use this sucker for probably a couple weeks at this point. And again, there's a... double check the focus. It's hard to tell when it's fuzzy like this. No, it's not too bad. I'm gonna snap a quick shot just for kicks. Maybe sharpen it up later, see if there's anything decent in there. Probably not. And also, I'm using digital zoom too, so that also degrades the image a bit, but it makes the image big enough for you guys to enjoy on the screen. But yeah, nice little rim of stuff. Now you can see the as the cloudy material kind of rolls over the, from my view of the moon, it kind of undulates. So normally you get this view when it's low on the horizon. You get that kind of thick atmosphere view, and it looks like it's swimming. Now you get it because of all the crap blowing in front of it, from my point of view. So it has that kind of undulating, wavy appearance, like it's partially underwater. Still sharp enough to see details, but not a stable image. Then there's a very bright crater then. I wish I remember the name of that one. I'll have to go back and watch this footage and get my app out and remember all the craters. Because again, I wasn't prepared for that tonight. I was just going to look at the moon real quick and do some galaxies. Because Virgo's up now, one of my favorite galaxies is up. It's called the Sombrero Galaxy. And it's one of the most, just like Andromeda and Whirlpool Galaxy and some other really nice ones, it looks like the photographs pretty much in a scope. I mean, it doesn't have the colors, a kind of a yellowish color that you have in photographs, but it has this beautiful dust lane. It's basically an edge-on spiral galaxy, and you're looking at the bulge of the nucleus and the spiral arms edge-on going out to the sides, and it's this beautiful dust lane that breaks it up into two halves, like a hat, basically. And oh man, first time I found that, and our club scopes over at the college, I was like, oh man, this is so cool. I was having a great night. Now I'm having to push the image a bit because it's getting darker and it's getting a little more noisy. Let me fix the ISO on this again. Zoom in again. It's a nice cluster craters on the edge here. This is really nice. Any closer, maybe? Yeah, a little bit closer. Now the headlights are coming down the street of some cars and they're casting big beams of light. So much moisture in the air. But, like I said, it still makes a pretty cool image on the stream. You know, not something to be super proud of photographically, but your eyes can make up for a lot of shortcomings of the scene conditions if you just stare at it for a while. Quick shot, go back in. This is a good example of the just the bombardment that the moon has gone over for so long. The far side of the moon is amazing. If you look at some great shots of orbital satellites going around the moon, taking pictures and stuff, and it's solid craters practically. Because it's basically it's locked, so it's basically the same face is essentially facing us at all times as it goes around, with some variation. You can occasionally see some stuff kind of a wobble a little bit, a little more of the edge on one side than the other sometimes, but in general you're seeing exactly the same face as it goes around the Earth from any angle. So it's pretty cool. It's a consistent view around the Earth. which means that the far side just continuously got bombarded and blocked us from getting peppered with all kinds of stuff. So the moon is not only a cool thing to look at and also helps us with our tides and things, but it's kind of a hero because it's a giant shield in space blocking some of the nasty stuff from hitting us. Now, things on the moon hit a hell of a long time ago, but as long as we've been monitoring the moon seriously, I don't know how if they've had a chance to actually determine if all the craters on the back of the moon are old, or if there are a few recent ones. I haven't read up on that, but I would imagine it's got a few sporadics here and there that would have hit us otherwise. But it's just cool to have this object that's fun to look at, and also kind of is a protector in space. But you can see just layer upon layer upon layer of craters. I hope my mouse is showing here. I thought I had the mouse turned on. Let's see. But you have these really large regions here, and then let me go back and look at the video real quick and see if I can actually see my cursor. I forgot if you can. I'm just watching the footage back real quick on the stream, make sure the mouse shows up or not. I know I had shown up on my micro streams with the microscope stuff, but maybe this software didn't have it enabled. I don't see the cursor, so probably not. No big deal. I'll have to find a way to turn that on future streams so I can point at stuff while I'm talking about it. Yeah, it's just really fun to look at this this object and see all the structures over time that have things hitting upon top of other things over and over and over again. So you have giant craters, all kinds of mini craters inside the giant craters, and then you would have, some of them clearly hit when it was more molten, which is why you have those mare, the dark areas. They called them seas in the old days because they didn't know what it was. And thought it was just big oceans on another planet, or in this case, moon going around us, which is basically early people studying this stuff. They probably just thought it was just another inhabited place because you couldn't really tell from here. It's pretty monochromatic, but until we went up there and actually started doing measurements, with they knew by the size that gravity would be really, really micro. But I don't know if again, I can't remember some of the history of before the lunar lander went up there and stuff, and the probes went up there, if they actually knew it was basically a vacuum or not on the surface of the moon. It's basically no atmosphere. So but anyway, it's pretty interesting stuff to just sit here and ponder all the stuff that just peppered the surface over time, and what it would be like to be there, because having the super low gravity or almost no gravity, it's like, what is it? I think it's a tenth of our gravity, something like that. So when something hits and it rises up and stays up for quite a while before it settles, it spreads over a large area. So even if you had an atmosphere on the moon to breathe, you wouldn't want to breathe in all those fine dust particles the moon dust, the fine dust called regolith, which is interesting. If you go to Cape Canaveral to look at all the old space program stuff and the suits from the astronauts brought back from the missions, they actually have the regolith still on the boots of the suits. They have this kind of grayish dirt appearance to it, and it was actually on there. They also have the moon rocks there and all that kind of stuff. I know all the conspiracy people are going to say it's all fake, but you know, give me a break. Chemistry will bear that out, and that's how it works. We even have pieces of the moon in Antarctica, pieces that have broken off over time and rained down on Earth, and you know, the untouched areas of Antarctica where humans and even some animals haven't been. They've gone out there and recovered moon rocks in the permafrost. So it's pretty interesting. But yeah, you want to hail that stuff. It's very, very fine. And I imagine quite abrasive. It's silicates and stuff like that. So it would not be good to breathe. But it'd be kind of cool just to see it, you know, from a dome or whatever, and just watch these plumes form and just kind of billow out. I imagine it's almost like watching one of those cloud tanks they use for special effects for movies, like the Star Trek movies and stuff where they have the ship going through the nebula and they have those kind of gases billowing and spreading around in a slow motion in a cloud tank. Pretty cool stuff. And it's getting darker because there's more and more moisture. So I'll hang out a bit longer just because I like looking at the moon. Let's go move along and see. There's the edge of the moon. If I go up a bit, you might see some sporadic. So a lot of light's blocked, so you're not seeing some of the grazing bits that stick up. But like on the other part of the Terminator I showed you, you often get little guys poking up in the dark areas that shouldn't be super visible, but they're higher, so they're catching the light. There's a little piece right there. So you can see it's not like a clean line. It's jagged because of peaks and valleys and high and low craters. I believe that's a rill right there, which is like a small mountain range. Probably a famous one. It's pretty big. And so you can see the edge as it's curving off to behind the surface, the far surface of the moon. And that's the kind of area that you could actually get with a wobble as the moon orbits the Earth and continues to turn to face us, the same face. There's a little bit of imprecision in there, and sometimes that left side there, you see more or less of it depending on just on some variables. So there's a, is it on the other side? I think it's on the other side. There's Mare Orientale, which is a small dark area surrounded by a rim of craters. Almost looks like a giant crater itself, which it actually could be. I forgot the details on that, but it looks like a kind of a bullseye, or just like a big circular thing. And it's on the edge of the moon, so we normally don't really see it, but it can rotate just enough as it's going around the Earth with this wobble. You can actually see some of it. From what I've heard, I've never seen it, but people have told me they've caught the edge of it at times when they're taking photographs. So, just about ready to pack it in because it's just getting more and more moist. Now the trees by my car are getting foggy instead of the trees down the street. So the moisture content's gone way up in the air, a lot of humidity. It's beautiful, but it's not good for astronomy. So, but the moon is getting darker and darker. As you can see, the noisy image has got kind of dancing pixels because I'm having to push the exposure. I'm trying to keep the shutter speed from getting too low so I can still snap a few shots, which means I'm having to crank the ISO a whole bunch. And that makes it a mixed bag of quality. Go down this way a little bit. See what's going down here. It's quite a bit brighter down here. So again, you can see connecting craters. That feature on the left is kind of an arc. It's forming a kind of a white mass that kind of looks like the state of California a little bit. And on the edge of it is a really raised white mass of, lighter mass of, looks like little rills or little mountain ranges and some craters. So this magnification, I can't quite see it that clearly, but you can definitely see there's some structure there. It's 3D popping out. It's just not the ideal image right now because of this conditions, but. And I believe, oh, wait a minute. I know what these are. Okay. Okay. I think my orientation is correct. That right triangle of 3 pretty serious craters is Copernicus, Aristarchus, and Kepler, forming that right triangle. Because I think Tycho's on the other side, which is in the Terminator right now, because the moon is actually upside down in this image. So, but again, this image quality is not great, so I'd have to get my little moon map out and refresh my memory. But Tycho's a really, really large crater, and in the right lighting conditions, has these amazing rays emanating in all directions from a massive impact that spewed out debris in all directions. And because the moon basically has no disturbances other than some minor kind of electrostatic effects that kind of create a little bit of a wind. It's not truly a wind, but some people have done some research there. I read something that they had written about where this, the regolith can actually kind of do this kind of a dance. It's not really a wind, it's kind of electrostatic effect. But I'd have to read about that again. It's all fuzzy in my head from probably 15 years ago. But essentially, the surface is undisturbed. So, you know, astronaut footprints left there are still there. And when the LRO probe went over, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter came overhead. First there was L-Cross, which was an impact event. And I actually went to NASA that night. My friend invited me with my scope and a bunch of other people to have some public programs along with the serious science going on the monitors in the background for the public to see on a big screen. And we actually watched, you know, it's within seconds off because of the distance, but we actually watched live L-Cross crash into the moon. And they studied the data for quite a while, probably a few months or more, because they're looking for subsurface water, basically. You can make water from the materials of what's on the moon already. They know the chemistry of the moon, and you can, you know, using the geology of the stuff that's there, you can extract water from what's there. But if they want to have a base there, they want to be able to find water, so you don't have to bring a bunch of water, potentially, or just have it for other purposes. So L-Cross did reveal subsurface frozen water. I forgot how much, but it definitely found it there. So that was pretty cool. But after that, they started doing some more visual stuff, including the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. And they went around the moon and took the highest res photos they've ever taken of the moon, unless they've done some since then, which I'm not aware of. And so they planned it perfectly, where they did some low altitude flies at certain angles where you're getting grazing light, just like we're getting now with the Terminator, where you're getting grazing light on the craters to reveal details. They picked a lot of spots for shots as it was going around to time it where you're getting grazing lights to reveal all of the lower stages of the landers, which would be really hard to spot normally, even with the high-res camera, because they're so small against the background, and the contrast is not great, supposedly. So all these images, basically like a sundial effect, they captured shadows of all the lower stages of all the Apollo missions. And not only that, but like you're not going to see the buggy they left there and stuff. It's pretty small, but the stages are much bigger, casting a big shadow because they're tall. But another fun thing is some of my friends who are way into this stuff downloaded all the high-res images, and through some Photoshop techniques and stuff to expose more contrast and more details, because the images are very high resolution that they got. They had studied the mission details because the earlier missions didn't have buggies. Everything they had to do when they moved stuff around without the buggies was hand carry. So before they would take off to meet the orbital stage and then come back to Earth, they didn't want to pollute with all that dust I was talking about before, and easily spread through just minimal action and sitting in the air for a long time. They don't want to contaminate some of their experiments that had optics in them and stuff. So they had to hand carry a bunch of experiments in different directions, well away from the launch site, landing/launch site. And so they basically had to hike with 2 or 3 guys carrying these experiments out to wherever they had to go. And so one of the missions this guy had studied had 2 such hikes. One was to drop an experiment one direction, and one is to explore this tiny little crater nearby that's not visible at this level that I'm looking at now, called Cone Crater. And they wanted to go check it out. And so they actually walked down to it, they walked around it, and then back. So the images are such high resolution that with the right contrasts, my friend found the hiking trails of the astronauts on the moon, which is pretty awesome. And of course, the conspiracy people are going to say, they put those in there, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, they'll go to great lengths to not want to believe in things that make sense via Occam's razor and visual evidence and testimonials from, basically pretty honest people in the scientific community that, most people can't keep secrets. So it's just the way it is. This shit was really done. But they'll believe in some other fantastical, crazy, lizard man conspiracy theories. The government is half lizards and aliens are coming to probe you, and don't get me started on all the religious stuff. So they'll go to believe in all this fantastical, crazy, non-standard, way outside the box ideas, and won't believe in something that's human powered, human ingenuity, hard work, many years of planning, lots of money spent. Oh, it's a conspiracy. Oh, I watched the footage and all this kind of stuff. And it's just some people even believe the moon doesn't even really exist. It's basically, we've put it up there as a structure with a light source inside of it, which is like, okay, well, how did we get it up there if we don't have a space program that could get to the moon to begin with? If we could get there to put something up there, don't you think we could have landed on something that's the moon and could have done some amazing stuff there? Or they believe it's some kind of deity has put it there as a beacon of some kind. So once you go down that path, you're pretty much, straight jacket time, and there's no rational discussion to be had. So anyway, it's pretty crazy. So if you believe in the scientific method and you believe in standing on the shoulders of giants, you believe in all the stuff that brings you all of your technology, from web pages to digital cameras to satellites to electric cars, the internet, allow me to stream this to you guys right now, and cell phones and miniaturization and all that kind of stuff. That takes scientific precision, scientific rigor, scientific reproducibility. The same thing that made the space program work, the same thing that makes virus, and the antivirus stuff work, the vaccines and things like that anti-vaxxers don't believe in. And so medical science wouldn't be where it is. We wouldn't have all this great technology around us right now if the stuff didn't work and didn't make sense. And it's the same thing that took us to the moon, same thing that will take us to Mars. I mean, it's just, people want to believe in SpaceX and going to Mars and all this kind of stuff. They're okay with that, but they can't believe in some very clever people with a lot of hard work and a lot of luck were able to pull off stuff You know, we could get guys in orbit, but we couldn't go further than that. It's kind of crazy. We have space stations. We have many astronauts and cosmonauts over years going to the space stations. That's real. We have footage of it. It's not CGI. It's not. I don't know. It's just people just want to believe what they want to believe in. But there's factual stuff, and then there's crazy time. Yeah, just babbling at this point, but it just drives me nuts because the very people that will complain and say crazy conspiracy stuff are the same people that love taking advantage of all this great technology that took the scientific advancements and human ingenuity, rigorous study and peer review and all that kind of great stuff that makes things work. It drives me nuts. You know, if they want to believe in that stuff, they should just go in the desert and live in a hut and not take advantage of modern medicine and not take advantage of all the stuff they claim they don't believe in brought them. So it's pretty nuts. Take one last tour around, look at some goodies. Again, it's not ideal. This is focus is going to get right now. I can maybe put it a little bit more. Let's see. My fine focus is slipping a bit here, so let me see if I can. Yeah, it's not bad. Considering what it looks like naked eye, you guys would be shocked. You go, how am I actually seeing the moon at all right now? Because it's got that rainbow halo around it. It's really fuzzy. A little less fuzzy than it was before, but it's not going away. The stuff is quite crazy right now. That's pretty good now. Maybe it cleared up just a tad. Leave it there for a bit. Just gonna enjoy that view. It's very nice. Cars driving by. You can still see it swimming. See the image is distorting. The clouds are, the fog is definitely fairly heavy, creating a nice layer between me and the moon. But still a stunning image. Can't wait to get my Barlow lens, as that's going to make these nice crisp images much better without so much digital zoom. But the digital zoom will let me go even further, so I can make this basically twice the size for some cool fine detail stuff. And then I can take some pictures on a night when it's more stable and I'm not worried about it getting too moist and getting my equipment wet. I can take a few pictures, open the image browser, zoom in on them, sharpen them a bit, and show you guys some stuff, you know, maybe not live on the camera, but slightly processed just to show some of the details, and then do a few more shots here and there just to make it look a little nicer. That's the power of having that extra magnification with optics instead of using digital zoom the whole time. But it's doing pretty well considering, you know. Let's take another quick shot here while it looks pretty good. Go back to zoom in again. Let's hang on there for a couple more minutes. Looks like nobody's in the chat yet, which is fine. It's kind of a weird time. It's definitely a weird time in California. It's, what is it, 5 a.m.? After 5 a.m. So I I should be asleep, but I just wanted to come out when it was pretty clear earlier, but then I got distracted uploading some of the videos for music stuff to YouTube and having some snacks, and pretty realized, oh man, it was actually clear earlier. I should have gone out a couple hours ago. And of course, as I was getting set up out here, it was getting more and more cloudy on the rim, but then all of a sudden it just some kind of low pressure thing just went whoosh, and all of a sudden it's just fog everywhere, like it was this morning. It was actually beautiful this morning, but not so great for astronomy. I wonder if I can go out enough, and if I expose this just right, maybe you can see the halo around the moon. You kind of see it there a little bit. You can see it's not just at least naked eye has a couple of different kind of rings around it. This one appears to be more colorful, and one is more kind of bright. I'm just barely catching the edge of that there. Almost looks like a sphere the way the fall off happens. You see that it looks almost 3D around the moon from that fall off. Grab a shot of that, maybe check that out later. So if I really overexpose it, you can see how hazy it is. Even turning it down, you can still see there's a bit of a halo around it. Have to turn it way down so you just see just the moon itself. And then if I zoom in, it still looks pretty good, shockingly. That's what's, until you get into the stuff so you wouldn't imagine that would be possible or look halfway decent, because you're so used to seeing stuff from a certain distance or a certain angle, and that couldn't possibly look good. But telescopes can do some amazing stuff, especially these Newtonian mirror telescopes. Like I've shown in other streams, it doesn't focus the light until it's gathered all of it. So it's the big aperture. This was only 8 inches, but I have a 12-inch giant light bucket telescope that I take to look at galaxies in Yosemite and stuff. But it doesn't have a motor drive, so I can't use it for a stream really, because I constantly have to move it because the Earth is rotating. But what's cool is it's gathered all the light, so they call them light buckets for a reason. As much light as you can get with the width, and then it gathers them at the primary mirror at the back of the scope, the Newtonian design. Then focuses all that light, even fragments of light through trees and going through leaves and stuff, then focuses that onto a secondary mirror, which focuses it further and angles it out to the side where the eyepiece is, where you focus it. So you try looking at the moon through trees or through some needles or maple leaves or whatever of planet or star or moon or whatever, and it just looks terrible. It's all basically it's already being focused and it's blocked mostly. You're not going to get a great image out of it. But because you're gathering all the light and then basically refocusing the image at the very end, it's able to recreate the object just much dimmer. So it sounds crazy until you try it, but it actually really works. Can't really do that with the refractor telescope with the 2 lenses. You need to use the mirrors to gather all the light first, then focus it, and then recompose the image at the end. And it's obviously not ideal, but I've looked at Jupiter through eucalyptus trees before, and it looked pretty good. I mean, it wasn't something you would photograph or write home about, but it was still pretty cool. There's a big garbage truck coming by. This reminds me of the first Terminator movie. It was the garbage truck, and it's kind of moist and foggy out. Okay, well, it's got even more foggy. Now the street is getting hard to see down the street. There goes the garbage truck. Alright, well, I'm going to call it. Time to get some sleep. So, hopefully you guys watching the replay get a kick out of it. Again, it's just a pretty simple stream of the moon because the scene got so bad by the time I got set up, that's all you could see. Not even the brightest stars. I mean, the brightest star in the sky, other than the sun from our point of view during the day, is Sirius, the famously called the dog star in Canis Major, right by Orion. Well, I used Sirius to get my alignment tonight, my polar alignment, and so it was looking okay before, but as I was getting another star pointed out and then some other stuff adjusted, it disappeared. And so the brightest star can't even penetrate this fog, but the moon is so damn bright, it's amazing. So this is why, you know, people say, oh, look at the full moon, it's amazing. It's beautiful to look at naked eye, but if you look at the full moon with a telescope like this where it gathers so much light, you'll be seeing a bright circle in your eye for a while afterward, because it's like shining a super bright light on your eye, and it doesn't hurt your retina, but you get that persistence of vision thing where it sits on your retina for a while. It's kind of uncomfortable. So what you do if you do have to look at the moon when it's brighter than this, but less of a phase, it's more almost full, like a gibbous moon to almost full, is you use a stop-down mask. So you basically either put a cap on the end of it with a hole in it, or you insert, you know, the little veins that hold the secondary mirror. You can put stuff against that, so you can actually insert a piece of black plastic or cardboard or whatever with a hole cut in that, much smaller than, you know, the hole you're putting the cardboard in, and it's allowing just enough light to go through that to stop down the light so it doesn't blind you, and allows you to see some details, because as you've seen parts of the moon that are really washed out, you need to use like a polarizer or special settings on your camera to bring the light levels down, or the stop down mask. In fact, I'll show you right now. I can use my arm. Here it comes. I'm going to stop it down. So my arm is blocking almost half of the aperture right now, and look how much more contrast you get. It's a little too dark, so I'll drop it down a little bit. That's a pretty good image right there. So I'm a human aperture blocker. So, but it's much easier when you hit hands-free. You make a piece of paper or plastic or something like that to cover it, so you don't have to put your arm in front of it. I'll drop it off again, and now it's pretty bright, and you can work on different areas, like have it come from this way. You can't quite tell which direction my arm is coming from because it's just an overall brightness difference. This is what I was saying about how it's just gathering all the light it can and composing the image at the end. And so I'm coming from one direction, now I'm coming from the other direction, and it appears no different. So that's what's so cool about the way this thing works, is it's just cutting down the overall light level. It's not a directional thing, it's just light coming in. So when you put that disc in your thing with the hole cut in it, it doesn't matter where you put the hole. It just needs some light to come in somehow, otherwise obviously you have no image. So yeah, there's some little tricks you can do to improve your imaging. You don't have to buy filters, you don't have to, you know, buy a commercial thing that's the stop down mask. You can make your own from black construction paper, black painted cardboard, even non-painted cardboard, just anything that blocks. It doesn't have to be black, but it's the nice thing about the black thing is you can also use it, you know, different kinds of solar eclipse kind of things where you use a special filter with your telescope. If you're not using the good filters, the ones that are really unsafe, but they still probably sell somewhere, are the ones that go inside your eyepiece, meaning that you would have all that energy coming down focused like a magnifying glass when you burn ants or whatever. You would have that energy coming down to your little eyepiece, focusing the hot spot of the sun, potentially cracking your eyepiece or just making the image so bright you would blind yourself if you looked at it. So I would imagine they put these little filters in there and it would block the thing to a certain extent, but the smart thing to do, is you had to use one of those, is to put a stop down mask in your if it's a Newtonian style or a Cassegrain style mirror telescope, at least stop down the amount of light coming into the scope before you use that stupid eyepiece filter. But I'd rather just no one use those eyepiece filters at all, because they're pretty dangerous. I'm sure some people have gotten blinded by them cracking at the worst time. So the best thing to do is you block all of the energy as you can at the aperture, at the opening of the telescope. So I have a filter that's a white light filter that goes over the end of the 12-inch scope that I have. It's a big ass filter. And not only is it a filter, but it's also a stop down mask at the same time, because why make a giant filter, which is expensive and can break and scratch? So that filter is actually a combination of a stop down mask and a filter. The little hole I was talking about that's cut inside the mask is actually where the filter part is, the aluminized mylar. And so when you put the cap over the end of the scope, fits right on the scope nice and snug. There's a hole which is filled with aluminized mylar to filter out the intense sunlight, so you get a nice kind of yellow orangey view of the sun. So that's a nice example of something that's using that technique, but it's also a filter, not just a stop down mask. But again, you can make your own, just like you can make it in solar filters, but you got to be really careful with that stuff. If you scratch it or poke a hole in it or whatever, it would be a very bad day for somebody, including yourself, if you're not careful. So always be very careful with this stuff. Always double check your equipment, and don't make any assumptions, because it's no fun to go blind from looking at the sun once if you do it wrong. And you know, I've looked at through all kinds of different equipment, including my own, and had good luck so far. But I'm always very, very careful. But as I said in other streams, I will be getting a solar setup pretty soon. I hope maybe next year. The problem is, with solar eclipses going on lately and solar astronomy getting more popular than ever, these pretty decent quality amateur telescopes, they even do hydrogen alpha, you know, really, really good filtering of the sun to see the prominences, the you know, flame-like loops of gas, you know, 2 to 3 to 10 times the size of the Earth coming off the sun, and sunspots of very high detail, and the granularity of the sun, which is like rising and falling convection currents of plasma in the sun. It's really interesting stuff. So I wanted to get one of those for a while. I finally found a decent company that makes a pretty good one that's not too expensive, but they're also like 6 months backlogged on these things. So I was going to order one last few months ago, and then I realized don't want to tie up that money right now when I need it for some other stuff. So I'm going to throw some money aside pretty soon and start saving up for one of those guys. Pretty soon, hope to have one. And I hope it's not 6 months from now. We'll see if their backlog drops. But I'll keep calling the company and see what their deal is. But it's great because then I can do these during the day. You can see the sun, which is a really interesting object. Different wavelengths. I have white light and H alpha and all that kind of stuff. So, all right. Well, it's getting more cold and more wet, and the moon is not getting any better. So I'm gonna pack it in, everybody. So thanks for rewatching this. If you happen to catch it, please leave a comment at the bottom. Any questions or requests you have or whatever. And as my favorite TV personality for astronomy, the star hustler, Jack Horkheimer, that died many years ago. He was on the Miami Space Transit Planetarium. At the end of his show, he'd always say, "Always remember to keep looking up." So keep looking up, guys. Keep watching the skies. Maybe you'll see a crazy UFO one of these days. Or whatever, but definitely look up. Always look up, because you never know if you see a sporadic meteor or a nice view of the moon or a cool grouping of stars that you maybe haven't seen before or want to learn. Lots of colors up in the sky. Stars can be quite colorful, even without binoculars or telescope. It's always a lot of fun. So I hope your weather is good in your area. You can look at the sky and have some fun. Go away from the light pollution. Go to the mountains or go to the desert or whatever you have nearby you, which is a nice scenic area which you can enjoy the sky. And again, thanks again, everybody, and I will see you soon.